Yes. I'm trying to persuade you, Liss, to go on your X account right now. It's not.
Well,
it's not.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about the whole thing because I have a new philosophy now.
Well, your philosophy should start. Okay, so let's.
But where is it? I don't see it. I'm not linked. I'm not. CC
yeah, just
here.
go to RotoWire's page. Right now, we're live. By the way, we are live.
Okay. All right,
and you should see it there, and then just give it a retwizzle.
Which it's not the Cowboys and Eagles, is it?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
That's us. Yep. Well, that's a good lead in here. I mean, I actually was not surprised that the Cowboys lost. You're gonna. This is like a small victory lap. I took the Green Bay money line.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, $50, nothing crazy, but obviously it was plus. Was it plus 420? I think something like that. 380. I don't remember.
No, in the threes because it was 7.5, 7 at kickoff.
Right. That's what the other one. The Bills, the 10-pointer was up there.
Yeah.
No, I just was like, why not? The Green Bay had beaten Detroit on Thanksgiving, and I didn't see much difference between Detroit and Dallas. So it's like, why can't they do it again?
Right. They beat the Chiefs too, Green Bay.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, and I mean, you looked at the record. I mean, we've gone over this before. They were 6-2. Jordan Love was 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. So, what do you think? I mean, you watch a ton of football. I'm just curious, like, what went wrong with the Cowboys, in your opinion?
I think they were like the Dolphins. They were, bullies on bad teams like the Giants. They were able to bully them, but when they played good teams, they almost lost to the Lions, the Cowboys. They lost to the Bills. They got blown out by the Niners. They weren't good against good teams. And, there's a kind of team like that. I think that the way that the sharps or the stats guys tend to see it is you just kind of aggregate everything together, and they are the totality of their per play and their success rates and all of that. But I think that may be true on average, but I think there are certain teams that wither more when the competition gets better and certain teams that step up when the competition gets better. And Dallas always seemed like one of those. Now, Dallas was also a lot better at home. So I didn't touch that game. I made the line exactly 7.5. But it wasn't that surprising. Dallas just never really won. It was like the Eagles fell apart. Dallas won the division only because the Eagles fell apart. Dallas didn't step up and beat Buffalo to win the division. They didn't do what they had to do. And so they were never a great team, and they were soft, and their defense played worse in the second half too.
Yeah, they had won, I think, was it 16 in a row at home? Something like that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty heavy.
Well, it just so happened that they got the Niners on the road, that they got the Bills on the, a lot of the good teams they played were on the road.
Right. That's a good point. And then, and Green Bay, I mean, I know they finished strong, but they were a 9-8 team. And by the way, can I, this is not a victory lap for like public consumption, but it is for you. I don't know if you remember one of our first offseason podcasts, you asked me, you said, who's a quarterback that can go be deep in the ranks?
Yeah,
and then actually said, and
I
did.
I remember that. Yeah. You said
Jordan Love.
And I was laughing at you like halfway through the season. I was like, yeah, that's just a trendy pick. That was a stupid pick, but no, he was good. And he's going to be, I still prefer Stroud straight up in terms of
not even a question.
Right. I think it's a question. I think it's a question.
Not yet. It's not a question, right? As of today, it's not a question.
But, I think Stroud is looks like an all-time great in the making, knock on wood. Love looks like a good quarterback, but they might both be. I mean, they're young enough, and Love his first full year of being the guy. I mean, how much better could it have gone? He's won a playoff game on the road already.
Yeah.
And
Stroud is a pure 22-year-old rookie. So I think the ceiling is still higher. Again, look, I've been in dynasty startup drafts already. Stroud goes at pick 3, right? After in Superflex, of course, after Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. People are still uncertain. Like Jordan Love's going like in the middle of the second round, like after the receivers. And that could change. But as of today, I think that's the sentiment.
Yeah. I mean, Stroud, so I want to talk about this. So we have the NFFC postseason contest, and we talked about this a little bit last week, how first round, you get whatever they score. Second round, you get double if it's an original player that's on your team. Third round, triple, Super Bowl, quadruple. And then a lot of the contest is picking like the highest scoring players in the Super Bowl, usually quarterbacks, and then also picking players that are not heavily owned. And remember last week I told you I was going Mahomes, Allen in that contest for my 2 QBs. And then I ditched Allen because I was like, everyone's going to a lot of people are going to have him. And Mahomes going to meet Allen in the second round probably. So I'm going to lose one of them in the second round. You can't have those two. So I switched to Stroud, thinking Mahomes and Stroud would meet in the third round. So they'd both have triple points. And then one of them would definitely go to the Super Bowl and have quadruple points. And they'd both be low owned. So this is going to be great. And then I thought, you know what? They're underdogs at home. Even though I bet the Texans that I won $100, I won $60. I bet like 66 win 60. And so I was like, but if he loses in the first round, that's dumb. And I don't want to have my whole entry riding on an underdog in the first round. So I switched it to Lamar. Okay. So I've got Lamar and Mahomes, right? So my thesis is Mahomes beats Allen, or, has a good chance to beat Allen this week. And if the Ravens just win at home, then I've got exactly the same thing. One of them guaranteed to go to the Super Bowl. And the NFC side, I have McCaffrey if the Niners make it at 4X. So I've got my 2 4X big scores in the Super Bowl, which is the point of the contest. And I've got the low in Mahomes. But at the last minute, I said, you know what? I'm 2 home run swinging as I'm always going for the home run. I don't need to get Mahomes and Stroud. I'll just get Mahomes and I'll go chalk with Lamar. But now that Stroud looked that good and they won so easily, I'm regretting it, because if the Texans beat the Ravens and the Chiefs beat the Bills, which is almost 50-50 in the second one, I've got it. It's like over if the Niners make the Super Bowl. Like, I've got the 2, no one's got that combination. Nobody out of like 2,000 teams. I'm the only one. And I was a nutless monkey and I switched it to the chalk. Now, if the Ravens win, which they probably will, then I'm in good shape. But I put a money line bet down on the Texans just in case, so I get compensated a little bit if the Texans win this game. So I think the Texans are a very live dog. I love the money line. I like the spread. I think this is going to be a tough game for the Ravens.
Yeah, and by the way, right now I'm really curious what the odds would be for a Jordan Love, CJ Stroud Super Bowl. Right? Wouldn't that be cool?
I mean, it's really just these 2 games, because they're both long shots, right? They're both getting about 4-1. So it's about 16, it's about 20-1, 1 in 5, 1 in 20, 125. But the thing is, because if they beat the Niners,
look,
right?
By the way, you got a nutless monkey.
Oh, yeah, good. Nutless monkey. That's an old phrase we've been using.
Yeah, but I'm saying, that's my point. Always new people keep coming into the stream,
We need to get that into the lexicon. So
right. I interrupted.
But the point is, like, if the Packers beat the Niners, then, like, of course they could beat the Lions, right? Of course. Right? It'll be like almost 50-50 if they beat the Niners. Obviously, the Lions will be like a 2.5 point favorite or something, or pick them. But if they beat the Niners, then it's like, oh, they could beat anybody. And same thing with the Texans. If they beat the Ravens, then they can beat anybody, right? I can easily see the Texans beating the Ravens and then Mahomes holding serve at home, or Allen holding serve at home in the cold, against them. But Stroud is Joe Montana, man. That guy, he moves around in the pocket well. He has like an extra sense of like how to, prolong the down, and then he just keeps his eyes downfield. And even like while he's being sacked, he throws it to an empty spot in the field where the receiver can run to. And this is like Joe Montana had this ability, and I haven't seen anybody else like it ever, except until this guy came along. I know it sounds like a crazy comp. Joe Montana is like a top 3 all-time quarterback, but that's what I see in Stroud. It's not like he's Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen as an athlete. He doesn't have a cannon for an arm. He just has a feel like nobody else. And then, you see that he's like religious, and he's like, he's not flustered by anything. He's not like, this guy just seems to me like with the mental mindset of the next all-time great. I don't know. I could be wrong, but my read on this guy is this is like Mahomes was the last one, in 2017. I mean, Lamar is a good quarterback, and Josh Allen's a good. I mean, those guys are really good. Burrow's really good, but I think Mahomes is the generational guy, and the next one, I feels like it's Stroud to me.
Right. The only pause here on that is that we kind of got that vibe with Herbert, and then he took a big step backwards based on where we thought he was going. So that's my only pause.
Never got that vibe. Herbert, my comp was Marino, and Marino was amazing, right? So yeah,
that's an all-timer. It's
an all-timer, but it's an all-timer that never won anything, right? It was a guy who could sling it down the field with just flick his wrist, and the ball would be on a line drive 40 yards, perfect to the guy. And you saw Herbert just easily zip it down the field. Herbert's also more mobile than Marino ever was. But that was the comp that I had. But Montana Marino is not close, right? Like Marino was like great. He was like an all-time stat great. And I don't even know if Herbert,
he was an all-time. Come on,
I don't even know if Herbert's going to get there even. But the point is that Marino was an all-time offensive. Like his offenses were great, but it wasn't like one of those guys where the final drive, they're down 6 and you're like, oh, Montana's going to beat us. He's too good. It was more like greatest show on turf stuff. It was like, Let's light him up, and And that's great. And he was a great quarterback. And Marino is great. He's like the 10th or 12th best all-time quarterback. But Montana's like 2. It's a different. I think it's a little bit different. And Herbert, these comps aren't exact, obviously. And Stroud would be lucky to be Montana, obviously. But Herbert, he's got the physical tools for sure. But we'll see. You got to get rid of Brandon. Getting rid of Brandon Staley is just a necessary step.
He's gone.
Yeah, no, I said it's a necessary step to like see what Herbert can really be, because that was tough.
Yeah, I mean, Jim Harbaugh interviewed over there this week, so that might be interesting as well. I want to go back to the Cowboys for a second, but Matt Stafford reminds me a lot of like Marino. I know Matt Stafford's more accomplished, and he's like, but just kind of in that pocket, flick of the wrist, quarterback, elevates an offense. Got Calvin Johnson his all-time season. And obviously he's
had a 5,000 yard season before.
Yeah,
I don't put him there because Marino, and same with Herbert. I mean, I just said the style was similar, but Marino was getting 4,800 yards when people are getting 3,000. It would be like if somebody got 6,200 yards this year, and you'd be like, wait, the all-time record was 55 and he got 62 and nobody's even over 5,000. It was like, so he had a 4,400 yard and then a 4,800 yard. And it was like Babe Ruth hitting 60 home runs when the next guy hit 20. It was so out of step with the rest of the league. So, Stafford will go to the Hall of Fame, and he's a very good quarterback, but he's just of his era. Marino was almost like of the future.
Yeah. The thing about Stafford, and again, we're going in a different direction right here, is that it's not a coincidence that he is a kingmaker at receiver. You know what I'm saying? Like Calvin Johnson, Cooper Kupp, now Puka Nacua. It's like the common thread is Stafford. So
I think Calvin was a physical all-time freak. So anybody who's decent in a dome is going to get that. And then McVay, because Goff, was supporting some good receiver production too when he was there, at his best year too.
Yeah. All right. Cowboys. I don't want to spend too much time going backwards with the wild card, but I do want to, because there's a lot of Cowboy fans out there that are asking us, like, that you hear about the fire Mike McCarthy, which they're not going to do. They've already come out and said that. So just in your opinion, I've been waiting all week to ask you here, what do the Cowboys need to do, not just to be a 12-win team? Now, take your Giants team bias out of this, but what do you think they need to do here to now fix the team, get to the next level? Is it, they're probably going to lose their defensive coordinator and Dan Quinn.
They need to relegate the Cowboys to college football and then promote Alabama or whatever, Michigan or whatever. I don't know, because they have, I think, got to get rid of McCarthy, and now that they're not doing that. I just don't think that team, I think that personnel was fine, right? I mean, they're going to get, what's his name back, Diggs back, who was hurt all year, and with Deron Bland, and they're going to have they're going to have Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. They're going to have this, sort of star-studded defense. And they have a good offensive line, and they have, they have CeeDee Lamb, who's an elite receiver.
I was setting you up here, and you didn't take the bait. They need Saquon Barkley.
Oh, I think Saquon would help them a lot, but I think it would help them a lot, but I think they needed a number two, like a real receiver more. Like, I think they needed, like Cooks is kind of cooked. He's kind of past his prime. And
how
then
about Gabe Davis? He's a free agent.
Nah. That just seems like another Michael Gallup plus. I think they need like a Amari Cooper is what they need.
Okay, so T. Higgins would be like a good one.
Higgins would be great. Yeah,
he's going to get franchise tag. There's no way he's leaving. But someone on that level, like wide receiver, like 11 through 20. Someone,
like Cooper, McLaurin, someone like that. That's what they had. Because
if only they had Amari Cooper. If only they could have gotten him.
Right. Yeah. Right. And so. Ferguson seems like a good tight end. I mean, it seems like they have enough. I mean, look, Barkley would be an upgrade over Pollard. Pollard wasn't very good this year. And I do think like a bruiser who's 240 or 230, whatever Barkley is now, does matter. Like, I think like people like don't realize that's why Barkley's so good, because he can bruise, but he's also a pass catcher. He's also a great pass pro guy. He does it all. And Pollard is like this quick speed guy, but like, maybe he was banged up after his surgery or whatever, off season, whatever. But I think they could upgrade or bring in someone. Dowdle seemed okay for a while, but then he was playing hurt in the playoffs. But I think they didn't really have like a dangerous second receiver. Maybe Jalen Tolbert, could step up and give him some reps if they ever did, but I don't think Cooks and Gallup were the answer.
Yeah, and the wide receiver free agent class is very thin this year, Liss. I mean, like I said, Gabe Davis, because he's basically top of the food chain. Everyone else, like the T. Higgins types, they're all going to be franchise tagged, as they usually are. I mean, Odell is a free agent. Tyler
Odell
Boyd.
can't do it.
I mean, Mike Evans is
those
a free
guys
agent.
are those guys are all just more Michael Gallups and Brandon Cooks. That's not going to do it. Like,
how about Mike Evans? He's a true free agent.
Yeah, he's old. I mean, you don't want to pay for that. Well, I mean, he's been around forever. I don't know. He was good. He was great this year. So I mean, he still had it in the tank this year. And maybe. And then there's Dak. How's Dak in these big games? Is Dak the problem? And I don't know. I think the coaching. I think Dak certainly can make all the throws, make good decisions often. But is he the guy when there's pressure? When he's behind, when the game is tight, that you really want? So they're not going to get rid of
alternative. What's the alternative?
Well, they'd have to build it all the way from scratch. They'd have to start over again.
They're not doing that. They're not doing that.
But I mean, this is the worst thing to be in sometimes, is be in that like limbo of like, you don't win a playoff game, but you make the playoffs, and then you sort of like never get that game changing draft pick, and you just have this, not even a dynasty. You have like what the Phillip Rivers Chargers had. For a few years, where you're like, yeah, you're always in the playoffs, but you never win anything.
Yeah. The other two free agents, and they could be tagged, but Hollywood Brown is one. Forget Michael Pittman. He's not going anywhere. And then the other one that I saw that was interesting, Calvin Ridley is a true free agent. Yeah,
it's a hell of a gamble to take Ridley.
Very good.
He seemed a little off. I don't know. That whole passing offense was off, so it's hard to tell. He led the NFL in end zone targets. He had 25 targets in the end zone. CeeDee Lamb was second with 20, and Calvin Ridley did so little with so much. He was dealing with some mental health stuff. Then he was gambling. I don't know if he's the guy that he's ever going to be the guy he was with Matt Ryan when he came into the league.
I like the Mike Evans one. I still think he's got it. All right. Philadelphia Eagles is our last look back. I don't think anybody's surprised this happened. I saw even like the chalk pick was, it was trendy to say, hey, give me the Bucks +3. I'm assuming you took them as well. I was the sucker.
I didn't bet it. The only ones I bet the Texans, and I wanted to bet the Chiefs, but I was a nutless monkey and thought, maybe the Dolphins would lose by 3. I was sure the Chiefs would win, but the game went exactly how I thought it would go. And I was like, why didn't I bet that? It's so obvious that they were not going to come into that weather banged up and beat the Chiefs. So yeah, that was obvious, but I didn't have a strong feeling about any of the other wildcard games.
All right, Eagles. What do they, just a quick synopsis here, what do they need to do to fix it? Because they were 10-1. They were one of the Super Bowl favorites. Jalen Hurts was an MVP leader. I think he was even minus money at one point. They lose 5 of the last 6, I believe. And then, the feeling was, okay, they're going to turn around the playoffs. A.J. Brown, there seems to be some discontent, like similar to how Stephon Diggs was discontent with the Bills a couple years ago. What do the Eagles need to do? Is it to get rid of the coach? All the things that you've been hearing all week. In your opinion, what do the Eagles need to do to get back to where they were?
I don't know, because their defensive line is aging. That might have hurt. Their offensive line was really good, but it was aging a little bit too. So you have these guys who were elite on both sides getting older, and there's not like a fix for that, right? And
they're
then
losing Kelsey also. Kelsey's
losing their best offensive lineman, right? And these guys were getting older as the season was going on, and Lane Johnson. None of these guys are young anymore. And then you have, the way they played down the stretch. And I kind of should have bet the Bucks, because I really thought the Eagles were going to turn it around in Week 18 against the Giants. And it was just one of those things where I always bet the team that's out against the team. Well, the Eagles were barely playing for something because Dallas was going to win against the football team that week. But they were sort of playing for something. I thought the Eagles need a get-well game. They need to crush the Giants and just be like, okay, we're in sync. We're ready for the playoffs. They could not afford to get blown out by the Giants after not having a good game in 6 games and then go into the playoffs like that. You can't do that. You can't turn it on and off. They needed to show they could do it. And what happened? The Giants blew them out, right? The Tyrod Taylor Giants blew them out. It wasn't even close. And then they sat their guys in the second half, but they were playing in the first half. And so they were done. I don't know. I don't know what they do, because I think like Hurts is just okay. He was playing behind a great offensive line with great skill guys. The defense is going to be worse. Guys like Bradbury and Slay are a bit older also. And then, you've got, you've got
Swift probably not going to come back. He's a true free agent.
Right. And he's injury prone. They never used Penny, even though they signed him. These guys like Gainwell and Boston Scott are just guys. And then, Devonta Smith is good, but you need A.J. Brown to be content and in the mix. So I don't know if this is a teardown. I mean, I think, maybe, but they've got Hurts under contract for a long time. And so it's not a teardown. I guess they got to just, sign a couple free agents and go at it like they're still a contender next year. But if things start falling apart in the first month, sell what you can, but I mean, the Hurts contract, I don't know what the
let me ask you this
on that. Yeah.
If this is just, no one's talking about this, but if you're the Eagles, right, and then you could talk to the Bears and they say, hey, we'll give you Jalen Hurts with his contract for the first overall pick, which one of those teams do you think says no to that?
Well, the Bears. Why would the Bears want to do that?
Because it's Jalen Hurts. It's a
proven
commodity.
No chance. You're not, because he's fully paid. The thing is, like there's a point at which, like, you just pay up for the fully paid, like, Patrick Mahomes fully paid, but you can't overpay him, or Josh Allen, or those guys. But when you get down to the next tier and they gave full pay, money to Prescott and Hurts, that's now a liability, not an asset. Because my thesis is basically like Baker Mayfield and Jared Goff are Jalen Hurts. They're not as mobile, but they're Jalen Hurts level quarterbacks. It's just situation's good. Jared Goff is like Jalen Hurts. Situation's bad. Jared Goff is bad. And so I think he's in that tier of QBs. Prescott is, maybe a little above it, but maybe not. He's always had a great situation with the offensive line in Dallas. And so, you never, it's just like the NBA. You never give Rashad Lewis the max. You give Kevin Durant, LeBron. Yeah, I just remember they gave him the max. It was like,
who's the dude on the Knicks they gave the max to that everyone hated the contract?
Jerome James, they gave him a big contract, but it wasn't the max. But he was a total scrub.
Was it
Amari Stoudemire?
No, but that was
Carmelo, Keith Van Horn. Allen Houston. Allen Houston.
There it is.
Right. You never give Allen Houston the max, right? Like, he was a good player. He was an all-star, but a low-level all-star, you don't give the max, right? You give the max to the superstar. And it's the same thing with the QBs. Like, you give the max to a top 7 or 8 QB. But if you're in that vast middle, wherever you want to draw the line, wherever you say, below Burrow, below Allen, below Mahomes, wherever you say this is where the line is, Stroud, I now put over that line. We'll see with Jordan Love. He could end up there or not.
Well, he's under contract for next year.
Of course. He's still on but I'm just saying, like, in general, like, what level, Kirk Cousins is kind of on the border, guy like Cousins. And I think Cousins is a better quarterback than Hurts. I think Cousins is a bit above.
You're on to something here. So, so there's 2 quarterbacks that are going to want to be paid the $50 million plus next year. And let's use your theory here that you don't overpay the marginal guy. So there's Tua, who's going to want the big money.
No chance.
Well, hold on. Let me just get this thought out here. And then you have Trevor Lawrence. Both have underperformed, right? I mean, both have not met expectation, and both don't belong in that. But what's the alternative, right? So I guess what you're saying is, what do you do if, let's start with Tua and the Dolphins, who obviously, we know that the wart's there. So he's going to say, I want 50. The team's going to say, hey, we'll pay you the 33, 35. And he's going to say, listen, I led the league in passing yards, right? Like, I mean, we went into an impossible situation with our defense banged up. I got to get paid the money. What do you actually do if you're the Miami Dolphins then?
I mean, can you franchise him for 1 year or what?
Of course you can, but then, so here's what I was thinking is, can you trade Tua and then sign free agent Kirk Cousins? Now, listen, this is why I'm saying this, because this seems a lot like what McVay did with
Stafford and Goff.
Yes, with Stafford and Goff.
Well, the problem was Goff had the contract, which was bad. So Goff was like, they weren't getting stuff for Goff. They were like,
giving stuff away.
Here's a placeholder quarterback for you, and we got to give you more because you took on Goff. So Tua might actually be of positive value. Like, you actually might get
a third
for him, right? For the money that he's going to command, right? Somebody might think, oh, we're just a quarterback away, and Tua is the guy we want, right? My problem is, one thing that's hard to tell about QBs, right, is that it's hard to know whether Tua is great. I mean, I don't think so, because they got Waddle and Hill, right? But, and a good offensive-minded coach. But it's hard to know. Tua's, I think, pretty easier to know. And also the concussions are just like, why would you even go there?
He was one of 9 quarterbacks that made it through healthy this year.
Right. But I'm saying, like, he's to me like any one concussion, he's in big trouble, like the next time. It's hard to know, like, it's easy to know with Mahomes and Burrow and Allen, although, Burrow's got his injury problems now too. But it's easy to know, who the really great quarterbacks are, but it's hard to know in the middle, right? I think Cousins, I wouldn't pay Cousins like a big, I'd do 1 year, but like, he's 34 or something like that. He's not young anymore.
Right. Yeah. He's only going to want a 1 or a 2 year.
Yeah. So Cousins is worth it for, the next year, I think. But the question is, I don't know that Tua is good. I think Hurts is not that good. I think Prescott's not that good. I think Mayfield is better. The Mayfield Goff tier is not different than a lot of these guys, and people get really confused. Matt Ryan won MVP one year. He was incredible, his stats, and then you realize Matt Ryan was like, at best, he was like Kirk Cousins. I think he was like Kirk Cousins, ish. Yeah. And they forget, and they're like, oh, Matt Ryan's like Brady, or Matt Ryan's like Mahomes, but they're not. And any 1 year a quarterback can look like that, and it's a tough call. Like with somebody with a short career or recently getting really good, like how good is he?
Yep. So here, this just shows you how powerful draft capital is. So Tua was the 6th pick or 5th pick. I forget which one he was. And Trevor Lawrence was the 1st overall pick, right? In the same draft class, more or less, right? Oh, no.
1 year later.
1 year later, but right.
Yeah.
Okay. But 1st overall pick and 6th pick. We're saying like, Tua is not worth it. Lawrence I don't think he's performed even as well as Tua. Now you could say why, but there's no question the Jaguars are going to give him the 250 over 5.
Well, there's one thing is Lawrence is a year younger, right? So that he's had one less year to No, it matters because not for how good he is, but for how much we're sure who he is.
So you're going to give him exactly. You're less sure, but you're less sure you're going to give him the 250.
What I'm saying is you're less sure that he's just
bad.
A guy,
right?
That he's just a guy,
right?
Whereas like Tua, you're more sure that he's pretty good, that he's a pretty good quarterback. No one could say he's not a bad quarterback.
He's the 18th to 23rd best quarterback.
Well, he's like the 12th 14th? To 15th best quarterback, right? But you're more sure that Tua is pretty good, but you're also more sure that he's not great, right? And with Lawrence, you're less sure that he's as good as Tua. He could be the 20th best quarterback, Lawrence, it might turn out, but he could be a top 5 quarterback. We don't know for sure yet that he's not going to be great one day. And if you let Lawrence go and someone else signs him in a good system and he turns out to be the prospect that he, was supposed to be, that's like where you defenestrate. That's where you just blew everything. You got the lucky pick that the Jets won that game, and then you get Lawrence, and then you didn't develop Lawrence, and then someone else did, and then you're really screwed. So Lawrence has been surrounded by, pretty good weapons, not great, but not bad. But is Doug Peterson are these guys really calling, I feel Mike McDaniel is put Tua in a really good spot, and they have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I feel like that system has been almost ideal, and then good weather. And Lawrence has pretty good weather, but is he, could he take another step? I don't think Tua is going to take another step. I think Tua is like a poor man's Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner is a Hall of Famer, but I think he's a poor man's Kurt Warner.
I don't. Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, Kurt Warner, man, he was at least, quote, a gamer. Tua strikes me as, man, it's just, like I said, put him in the situation, put him in the Chiefs. Like, swap Patrick Mahomes and Tua. What would have the Chiefs looked like this year? What would have the Miami Dolphins looked like this year?
Yeah, it would have been a whole different
very thing. Bad with the situations.
But I think Tua is, he does have touch. He does get the ball out quickly. He throws the ball in a position where his receivers can make plays. Obviously, they're really skilled. But I think there's a little Kurt Warner in him. We're slinging the ball around, greatest show on turf. I think there's a bit of that in him. It would be a poor man's Warner, and the concussions are a liability. Whereas Lawrence has some, he's sort of halfway between Danny Dimes and Josh Allen. He's got that like mobility. He's big. He can make, insane throws sometimes, but you're like, where's the consistency? Why are you playing terribly? Why is the offense stalling against mediocre defenses? I don't know. And I don't know if that's a system thing or that's Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah. And that's why I think that the in Miami, they're probably going to have to consider like Kirk Cousins if he's healthy, and then, move on there. And you would say then the natural question is what happens in Minnesota? Remember, Russell Wilson's still looking for a team, right? He's going to be looking for a team.
I think Wilson is just like a stopgap. But then again, Mayfield left for dead, Goff left for dead, Wilson left for dead. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is Russell Wilson from 5 years ago. Like, how did this happen? Quarterback is so this is the thing. This is what the stat dorks don't seem to get is like, they're like, oh, the quarterback's the only thing that matters. Yeah, quarterback play matters, but the quarterback and the quarterback play is not the same thing. So like Joe Flacco, until he was exposed, quarterback play was outstanding in Cleveland. It was great in Pittsburgh with Mason Rudolph for a couple of games. It's just the situation dictates the quarterback play in many cases more than the guy, because 80% of the quarterbacks, maybe 60% at a minimum, are all basically equal. It's just circumstantial. It's only the guys at the very top that transcend the situation, like Mahomes. And Mahomes' numbers suck this year. He wasn't but you could still see like they're dropping his passes. He's making that first down scramble. Mahomes, it's obvious when you watch them play that he still got it. And that he's making plays despite the situation. So there's a few guys like that, but mostly it's quarterback play matters, but not the quarterback.
Where do you think, what number quarterback off the board do you think Patrick Mahomes will be in fantasy football drafts next year? Is he still quarterback 2 after Josh Allen?
No, it'll be Allen, and then we'll see what happens with Hurts. But those like push touchdowns are like so.
I mean, let's see what happens with Hurts. This is where we're at. Let's just say we're drafting today, right now.
I mean, I wouldn't take Hurts second, but
neither would I.
Right, but I mean, he scored how many touchdowns on the ground?
15,
like 13,
something like
15,
that.
Yeah. That's a hell of a floor. Lamar Jackson will go pretty high.
That'll be number 2. That's it. That's the answer. That's the answer.
Well, we'll see what happens in the playoffs, though. It may affect it. And then Burrow's going to come back, and people are going to be nervous. But if Higgins is there, Burrow's going to be drafted high.
And then if a real coach, man, with Tank Dell back, and
what if they draft somebody? What if they get another receiver? What if they what if they sign a receiver, like, because they don't know or Brown is okay, but Nico Collins and Tank Dell, what if they get somebody? What if they, Dalton Schultz is okay, but what if they bring in like another playmaker?
Yeah, they have the Browns first round pick. They don't have their own first round pick, but they do have the Browns first round pick, which I think is like 24. So that's like prime receiver area, right? I mean, it's not elite, but it's a first round receiver. So yeah, you're right about that. All right. The divisional stuff that I want to get into, Liss, is you remember all too well the Giants' improbable run as the 6th seed, and Green Bay did an improbable run as the 6th seed. I just think that this 49ers laying 9.5 thing, I'm just trying to, can Green Bay be that team now that goes on this crazy run? Or is it, I mean, this is not that different than when the Giants beat up Green Bay in Green Bay. Green Bay was a great team that year. So Green Bay now goes into San Francisco. I've been waiting all week to hear if you think there's any parallels here between the 6th seed Giants that could do it.
No, the Giants, both years, 2007, they were the low seed also.
Yes.
And they shocked. 2007, they beat the Cowboys, the Romo Cowboys. They were 13-3. And the Cowboys would have won that game, but Patrick Creighton dropped a slant for first down. Giants beat them. First of all, they beat Tampa on the road in the wild card game, and they were underdogs. That was John Gruden's Tampa team. They beat them. They were 3-point underdogs, 3.5. The Giants were not even good, okay? Then they shocked Dallas, okay, in the next game. And they were 13-3. So they beat a 13-3 team. Then they went to San Francisco that year and shocked. Was it San Francisco? No, sorry. They went to Green Bay in the freezing cold.
That was the Tom Coughlin Cheeks game.
And they never, no one ever beat Favre in the freezing cold. They beat them. They were 13-3. Then they go to Super Bowl and beat the undefeated Patriots, right? So this is like the sickest run nobody ever saw coming. 2011, same thing. They beat the Packers, who were the 1 seed, who were 15-1. The Packers were, by the way, so one thing, they beat the 18-0 Patriots, and the other thing, they beat the 15-1 Packers, okay? And then the next game, they beat the 13-3 Niners in overtime after they gave it to a concussed punt returner who fumbled twice. And then, then they were underdogs again in the Super Bowl of the Patriots and beat them again. And the thing is, nobody thought those Giants teams could do that, right? Everybody's talking about Green Bay like, hey, they just beat Dallas, and Dallas was, a pretty good team. To me, this is, it's not like that. I'm not saying they couldn't win, but they're not remotely the long shot that the Giants were. I think that like they're much more, maybe before the playoffs, I guess. Part of it was the Giants only beat like a crappy Tampa team in the wild card, so nobody took them seriously even after the wild card win. And people are already taking Green Bay seriously because they beat a good team at home, or ostensibly good team at home. I think the Niners, I don't know. So here's the deal. I think the Texans are the livest dog of the big, they're more live than Green Bay even. But I think Green Bay could win, obviously. I think that typically, though, in the divisional round, you get excited about the wild card team, and then that bye week team flexes its muscle and wins like 33-7. And you're like, oh yeah, that's the best team in the conference. I don't see it against Stroud and Green Bay. This is a great test for Love. Can he deal with that Niners defense that's really good and gets pressure on him? And we'll see.
Yep. The So would you take the minus the 9.5 with? Would you lay the wood, or you would if you're forced to bet this one? Forced to
If
bet.
I'm forced to bet, I don't. I think that's the right line. I mean, I think Green Bay, 9.5. Green Bay has a 20% chance, 20% chance of winning, but San Francisco, is the better team, and you could see them like McCaffrey breaking a run in the fourth quarter and just opening it up. I guess I probably take the points if I absolutely had to pick this one, but I don't have a strong feeling.
If it went to 10.5, is that like just auto? Reflex?
I mean, of course, I wouldn't be auto. I'm not like that. I'm not one of those people that says, 9.5 is 50-50, 10.5 snap call. That's like, some Rufus stuff where they're like professionals who like just see, it's incrementally better. Me, it's like, do I feel the game's going to go this way? And then you get a little advantage and you're like, okay, I have to feel the game's going to go that way. Like, that's why I should have bet Chiefs. Miami's like, of course Miami's going to get blown out in the cold. And I was getting too caught up in, 4.5. They might win by 3. That was just stupid.
All right. Tampa going into Detroit. Detroit 6.5. Do you have I think this is the right line as well, right? Like it's like right on that number where you're not, there's the right below a touchdown here. I absolutely love Detroit on this one. I would take him at 7.5.
I made a small bet on Detroit myself. So here's the thing.
Okay.
This guy
and I have to turn the heat off because it's like pounding on my bald head right here. It's like making my neck sweat. Keep going.
Okay. So I think Alan should hear this though, but I'll repeat it when he comes back. One of my main commenters on realmansports.com, Tony, is a big Lions fan. He's always defending Jared Goff, over defending Jared Goff, thinks he's like the second coming. But seriously, Tony knows what he's doing. And he went to a Lions game. He went to the Lions-Rams. And he said, so I'm talking about one of the commenters on my Real Man Sports, who's a big Lions fan. He knows the Lions well. And he went to a Lions game. And he said the environment was so insane. I mean, they haven't been to a playoff game in, decades. And it was just so loud, so insane there, like nothing he's ever heard. And he said, like, it screwed up the Rams, burned a couple timeouts. It screwed them up a couple of times. And, McVay is, experienced playoff coach. It's experienced playoff team with Stafford. He knows the area. And he said that this is going to be a really tough place to play in the playoffs. And he said, lay the wood. And I made a small bet on them. I do think 6.5 is pushing to like where it's getting. I think 7 should be the line probably now. Yeah. I originally said 4.5, but now that I think about it, Tampa's not good. Tampa's just a team. They beat the Eagles because the Eagles suck. Tampa's a well-coached, hardworking team. Mayfield's like a solid QB, but they're not a good team, I don't think. And I think the Lions, even though their defense is a little soft, could sort of get ahead of them and grind them down with the running game and start to pull away. So I would actually lay wood with the Lions here.
Yeah. All right. And then I never asked you because you were talking about Houston, how you like them as a live dog. So the 9.5, you're auto betting that one. And then the money line is something that's in play for you as well. You said
I did both 100 on each.
Okay.
I just want to get paid in case I nutless monkey blew it with Stroud. Cause I had Stroud and now I'd way rather have Stroud now. It'd be more fun. And it's like, so what? It's $200. Like I could win 150K if a couple things break my way. And now if Lamar wins and even if Mahomes beats Allen, right, which still puts me in a great spot because now I'm in the championship game with my 7% owned quarterback was Mahomes. Even if that happens, it's like I still need other things to go right. Whereas if I had Stroud and he made it to the Super Bowl, say, that's it. I probably win the whole damn thing, and I pick up Nico Collins this week instead of not. And then the whole thing, and now I sort of have to have everything perfect. So I'm going to compensate by betting the Texans money line to hedge.
Yeah. In the you're talking about Nico Collins, and I just want to go back to fantasy football for a second. As I'm rejiggering some of the dynasty rankings, I see Nico Collins is like, in consensus is like 15, 18. I have him in our like long-term keeper stuff. I put him at wide receiver 11. I mean, ahead of Jalen Waddle, ahead of Devontae Smith. For me, I thought that was I'm out of line with consensus. Do you see him as someone that you would consider taking in the third round of redraft next year?
I'd have to look at it more closely. I didn't really look at him that much. I know that
those guys that I just named, Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I mean the problem with Waddle. I mean, we'll see what happens with AJ Brown, but but Devontae Smith is tied to a mediocre QB that is a little bit in disarray. The Eagles are in a transition, and AJ, and if AJ Brown's back. And Goddard, it's just like crowded. Plus, they like to run the ball. It's not ideal. And Waddle, same thing. Tyreek's the alpha there, and they like to run the ball and do all the sorts of trickery. and you just don't see Waddle getting the 160 targets. Whereas Collins in a full season could be the wide receiver one on a top 3 NFL quarterback and could get 160 targets in a full season, right? He could do that.
Yep.
And then be, that dominant, that CeeDee Lamb. The CeeDee Lamb season is what you want, right? The absolute dominant alpha, on a team that's pass first. That's what there is upside for that. So I get it. But because he's just done it over a smaller sample than those guys and doesn't have the pedigree, there's also more chance of bust. So
yeah, but you always talk about it's not just the size of the sample, it's the magnitude. The guy's had 2 200-yard games.
Yeah, no, it looks like he's the real deal, and physically he's the real thing. So,
yeah. And he was injured his first couple of years, and playing with Davis Mills, all those things. So, the other player, we'll go back to
Nakua is the other one, right? Nakua.
There you go. You know what I'm
Nico
saying?
Collins.
I have him as wide receiver 6, Nakua.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, I'd have to look at it. Lamb, Jefferson,
Chase,
Tyreek, and Chase are the big 4, right?
And Amon-Ra. I'm putting a big 5 in there.
Okay, so 5. Okay, and then after that,
Puka.
It could be Puka, it could be AJ Brown, it could be
Garrett Wilson, if
Garrett
you like
Wilson.
him.
But I think Garrett Wilson's getting a little speculative right now because we just don't know what where Rodgers is going to be in the Jets and all that. So
good, we're in line here then. So yeah, so we agree the big 3, and then like let's call them the little 2 with
Chase and Amon-Ra.
Well, oh no, okay, right, Tyreek. So there's a big 4, and then a little 1. And then does Puka belong, right? So I think he does. So
I mean he's the guy. He passes the eye test. He makes plays. He doesn't drop passes. He doesn't lose focus. You'll see in the big game, he'll come down full speed with that pass. It's not like he's cool. He's fine. So.
Yeah. Did you see and there's no question at this point. It's not even like a doubt in anyone's mind that he's the number 1 and Cooper Kupp is like the 1A or the 2. It's not even like. That's
Robert Woods territory.
There you go. I like that. That's a great comp. All right, back to divisional round. I mean, everyone thinks this is going to be the best game. Obviously, the line indicates that. You have Kansas City going into Buffalo 2.5 here. My thought was just take the points, right? But that's just like a reflexive. I haven't put my wager down yet. Is that how you're seeing it, or is Buffalo just too hot right now and Mahomes doesn't have enough support?
Well, I went in on the Chiefs. That was my main thing for that postseason was get Mahomes. He's going to be low owned. He's 7% owned. Can you imagine that in the postseason contest? Purdy, Josh Allen, Lamar, they're all more Dak. They were all more owned than him. I think maybe even Hurts. I don't know, maybe not Hurts, but all these guys are more owned than Mahomes. You're talking about like the greatest quarterback of this generation, and he's 7% in a 2 QB playoff contest where you get points for going a long way. So that was my play. So my whole thing was, I don't know if the Chiefs are going to beat Buffalo, but it's got to be close to 50-50, and the line reflects that. And I think that the Chiefs' defense is way better than Buffalo's defense. Buffalo has some injuries on defense too. The Chiefs have like a top 5 defense in the NFL right now. They're one of the best defenses in the NFL. And so, you got Rashee Rice, who's, come on as like a legit, receiver. Kelsey needs to wake the fuck up. I mean, that's the thing. They need to have Kelsey. I don't know how many injections he's had or the Taylor Swift thing or whatever's, going on, the PSYOP that they're running. But that dude needs to be Travis Kelsey because that's the missing thing. If they have Rashee Rice playing at his level and they had Kelsey playing at his level, that's all they need. The complementary guys can do their thing. That's fine. Pacheco is solid, whatever. But if they have that, the Chiefs, I think, are easily capable of winning. Obviously, this game's in Buffalo, but the cold's not going to, be an issue for either team. And I think that the Chiefs, I like the Chiefs. I like the Chiefs to win that game, but I'm not like, Josh Allen's still really good. And Buffalo's got a problem too. Like Diggs hasn't been the dominant factor that he was. And I think that was a thing where like Diggs is going to light you up. And if he's not, Josh Allen he ran for 52 yards and a touchdown in that game. They didn't dominate Pittsburgh. Mason Rudolph threw that pick when they're down 14-0. They lost by 14, but it wasn't like they weren't like totally out of that game with like a crap offense. They ran on them a bit, the Steelers, and like, I don't know. It just seemed like I think the Chiefs will probably win. Yeah.
Now at least, by the way, the Buffalo lost a couple defensive players too, which are
in that game. Yeah. Key guys.
Yeah. Key guys. So that's an interesting point too. I thought the line was going to be 3. I mean, 2.5 is a little different. Obviously it's the push factor. So yeah, it's money line Chiefs for me as well. I could.
I mean, 2.5 is sort of like the default now. It used to be 3 when you go on the road,
right.
but 2.5 is sort of equal teams, but in the other's venue.
Yeah, but
So,
right. If the Chiefs are going to win, they're not going to lose. They're not going to lose by 1. Right? I mean, obviously they could, but
they
I'll just
easily
take the
could.
I'll just take the
2-point
+1.
conversions, and
There you go.
we're in a different world. The whole 3 being the sacred number, it still matters, but it's not as big of a deal in a world where one team goes for 2. It's like all of a sudden all those scores and like those pools where you have to get the exact, what are those called? The squares pools, where you get like, I got 0 and 3. Oh, I'm so happy. Oh, I got
Boxes.
8 and 5. The boxes. Oh, I'm screwed. Well, it's a lot less like that now with the 2-point conversions.
Right. Used to get, what were the 2 numbers? 8 and 5 were a death sentence, and now they're in play.
Now you can do it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, would you rather take the +2.5 with the Chiefs or the +130 on the ML?
I think I'd probably do money line, but actually I'd probably do one of each. I do think there's a really good chance the Bills win by like a point. I think this is going to come down. I think this game could easily come down to whoever has the ball last, and it's a field goal, and they may be down 1, and they kick the field goal to win by 2. I mean, I think that the points may well be relevant.
Well, let me also, maybe this will change your mind, and this is one that's for the more than casual gamblers here. Just this one, the +2.5, the points line list is +100, so it's even money. You don't have to pay the -110.
Oh, people are betting the Bills, so you're
yes,
getting,
Bills are -120 right now.
Even money +2.5 is great. I'll probably take that.
Okay, so back to normal football. All right, so I think that concludes our football discussion. I saw I've been refreshing your podcast feed to see when it's coming. It sounds like it's finally. It's finally. I wish that it was up before we did this podcast. So
well, actually, I was doing it. I was about to hit send, and then I went and did something else. I had to go out. So
these are excuses to me. This doesn't help my prep.
Well, here's the thing. I went to the there's this like outdoor chin up and like push up, like this area where you do dips and stuff. This like outdoor like workout place. Mm-hmm. I went there. I'm starting to do that, so I had to take care of my health.
Getting ripped. I like it. Hey, before we get into what's going on the Chris Liss podcast and your new Twitter experiment and all that stuff, was the picture that you posted on your X account of that meat, was that like generic picture, or is that something that you actually ate?
That's something I ate, but that wasn't this week. That was this summer in France.
Nice fatty meat there. I liked it.
Oh, rare, so rare, but it's such high quality grass fed. And that was in the Alps. Like we drove up.
Was it beef or was it like sheep?
Beef.
Okay,
and it was like this amazing restaurant. I should like post some photos. Like it's up in the mountains, like in the in the Alps, and they just like they have great wine. Although I'm not really boozing these days, but back then I was. And they bring out like these giant plates of meat that they cook over the fire. It's amazing. So
yeah, we do 100% grass-fed organic too. Because I know you talk about a lot on your podcast, and some of your followers may not understand where to go get that. There's actually mail order stuff. We go US Wellness is a good one, and Butcher Box has grass-fed. So there's a way to like just get it delivered to your home as well.
Yeah, I would do that over the Whole Foods. I don't trust Whole Foods. We don't as much. And like, and if you have a local guy who can deliver that, but
that's hard in a lot of places,
Yeah. Yeah. So the Twitter thing. So here's, I'll tell you.
Let me quick promo first. Sure. Just want everyone, if you want to go check out Chris Liss's content, it's over at realmansports.com. If you want to go check out RotoWire, right now we're giving away free 2 days. Just go to rotowire.com/try, rotowire.com/try, put in your email, paywall unlocks, fantasy baseball rankings, top 300 or 400 is up. Rest of season fantasy basketball stuff. Golf is underway. Tons of fantasy golf stuff. And then obviously premium content for fantasy football. All right. We're going to switch topics now off of football. Liss, just to refresh anyone new to the podcast, you have, let's say, had a warm, cold relationship with Twitter, with X. You're only on once a week now. What's happening? What's changing?
So I started posting more, and part of the reason is I do feel like a nutless monkey because I wanted these rants about it, but it's true. I got to own it. I feel like when he hired Linda Yaccarino and was like, oh, freedom of speech,
Elon Musk,
isn't freedom of reach, and and I was like, that's just some Orwellian bullshit, to stifle speech. And why is he bringing in this WEF, ad salesperson? It's really, why couldn't he hire someone else? And so I was kind of soured on it. I'm like, he's full of shit. And he might be still. I'm not saying he's not. But thus far, I do feel like, the tide is turning a lot in terms of what people can say, what can be discussed openly. And a lot of that's because Twitter is not censoring. And so, major things happen. Like the whole scandal at Harvard would have been buried, I think, except for Twitter. And I think this is a force for the good. And so I, paid for the check. I also did it because I wanted to post longer things, and there was no way to do it without that. And just to sort of, you have the European Commission with these nutless monkey. I told you, right? The pussification of pussification. Terry Breton was trying to like shut him down and do all the shit. So I'm like, all right, I'll subscribe because they're trying to do that. So now that I'm doing it, I'm like, all right, fine. I'm in on this. And if he, somehow, goes the other direction, then I can always cancel. They're actually pretty good about like letting your renewal's up and all that. And then, but I'm thinking of maybe doing a Real Man Sports account, because the problem is I often want to post about sports. The same reason I have two, websites. I have realmansports.com and chrisliss.com. It's very hard to talk about like biomedical authoritarianism and how serious that is, and how nutless people like in my industry were, and how cowardly they were, and we're calling for, if you don't take this injection, you shouldn't be allowed to travel. These are people in the industry, shut the fuck up. Like, you don't know anything about anything. And now you're like, advocating for your neighbor to be coerced into taking chemicals against his will. Just shut the fuck up. You guys are such idiots, right? And these people, and I'm posting about stuff like that, okay? And then it's very hard to like pivot and be like, hey,
Tony Pollard is a bust this week.
Yeah, or Tom Savage, how barbaric the quarterback play. That's right. It just doesn't go with what I'm serious. Like I'm not cool with what happened. Like people are like, oh, it's over, dude. Relax. I wrote a whole post on this. Oh, it's over. Really? Are the people who did everything still in power? Yes, they are. The people who locked you down, who coerced you to take medicine you didn't want, yeah, they're still in power. Have the people who went along with it, those nutless monkeys, some of whom were my former, industry people, nobody at RotoWire, but people. Have they been repentant? Are they sorry? No, they're not sorry at all. Have they apologized? No, they haven't apologized. Would they do it again if they were incentivized similarly? I think they would. So has there been justice for the architects of the gain of function research? No, there hasn't. So I'm not letting this go until that stuff is no longer true. And so, I'm serious. I'm pissed. I'm still pissed. I just because you're not being abused this second doesn't mean what happened is cool. Just because it's not happening to you right this moment doesn't mean it's cool that I wasn't allowed in a restaurant or wasn't able to travel. I'm still enraged, and I'm going to keep on this, and I'm not going to let them off the hook. And you're going to hear from me. And if you don't have to, if you mute me or whatever, that's fine. But so long as I'm, have the space to say something, those guys, they're going to repent, because I feel like that kind of behavior, if it goes without being accounted for, is going to breed more tyranny, more totalitarianism, more other people telling you how you have to be, what you have to do, what you can eat, where you can travel. And it's just not their business. It's not, they are not the master of me. I'm the boss of myself, and I reject all of that. I reject them supporting what they supported. And so I'm going to go on about that. But I love sports and I watch sports. So I'm like, all right, I need a separate venue for this, because you can't just be talking, back to back, as you said, like, look what a bust Tony Pollard is. The next thing you're talking about biomedical totalitarianism. It's just too jarring,
The Venn diagram crosses over with Aaron Rodgers, right? Like that's the crossover to the two.
Sure. And
worlds.
I would tweet about both, in both cases, and that's totally fine. But, if you're a sports account tweeting about some Rodgers stuff, and I will, and Carissa Thompson and that whole bullshit, the joke that people are getting outraged about that. I mean, these nutless monkeys, right? Oh, I don't talk politics. I'm into sports. I kind of stay out of it. Oh, yeah? Well, when Trump was president, I don't even like Trump. All you did was talk about Trump. All you did was talk about, what a virtue signaling little good boy you were because you hated Trump. And you talked about it, and you were willing to talk about it just because everybody you figured agreed with you, who might promote you, who might be following you. And now there's actual, like, they didn't let you leave your house. That was Trump's fault too, but they didn't let you get on an airplane. They didn't let you go to a restaurant unless you were biomedically compliant with pharmaceutical chemicals. Oh, and your crickets. Not only was crickets, first you advocated for that, and now that the tide's turned and people are like, oh, that shit didn't even work. It's got horrible side effects. Oh, where are you? Where are you? Where are you in my mentions giving me free health advice? What happened to you? Where did you go? Yeah? Oh, so you're not going to tell me what to do with my health? You don't know better than me anymore? What happened? I got all this free health advice. Where did it go? So I'm still pissed, right?
You know where they are, Liss? They're out there yelling about, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict now. I don't know which side they're on, but they're yelling about something.
I don't even know if they are. I think a lot of those people are like just like rigidly sticking to football and acting like all that stuff's,
Okay.
that's
fair.
in the past. And let's memory hold this. Let's memory hold the stances I took. They were so sure. Why were they sure? Just because everyone else agreed. And think about how that kind of mindset, they're going to agree with the crowd wherever there's a consequence for going against it, right? So, I mean, these people, they don't think for themselves. Their critical thinking was completely put on hold due to incentives. And, I don't know. I'm like embarrassed for them. And I just feel like I actually don't like seeing people who I do respect, who weren't like that, sort of still acting like those people. It's cool, right? It's cool. No, those people are intolerant, right? Imagine if someone's intolerant, about race or about sexual orientation or gender and was being nasty to people on that basis. You wouldn't tolerate them. You wouldn't go and podcast with them like everything's cool. But people are doing it like, oh, you were trying to put these people, you were trying to tell people, make people into second-class citizens based on what? Pharmaceutical compliance? Do you realize what a psychopath you were when the government and these phony doctors with bow ties are coming in telling people, where they could go, which is totally a violation of their rights as citizens. And you're going along with that stuff and you're acting like, oh, I memory hold that. I don't remember what my stance was. It's shameful. It's truly shameful. Yeah. And I think that people should not be treating it like it was anything different.
Yeah. The only thing, and again, this is not a defense of the person that you're talking about, the people you're talking about, but the media did a great job of scaring people into that. So now I think your true personality is going to come out no matter what. But if there's any like logic or reason to that the extreme stance, I remember in March of 2020, I was scared. I
fell for it for 6 months, but I never was like, I need to take away your rights. I was never like, you need to wear your mask. And I never, ever did that because rights are for when people are scared. That's the reason rights exist. You don't need rights if nobody's scared. If nobody's scared of you, you can walk down the street. Nobody's going to bother you. But if all of a sudden people are scared of you and they want to arrest you just for being there, that's when you need to say, hey, you don't have the right to do that, right? Like I have rights. And so the scared thing is one thing, but okay, fine. Let's say they fell for it. Not just the way I fell for it, but like fell for even like, oh, we need to suspend rights because it's so scary. Why can't you repent? Why can't you say, you know what? I got caught up in a mania. It was shameful that I got caught up in it. I apologize. It was, I thought I was a stronger person, a better person than that. I wasn't. And I'm really reckoning with that. Fine. No problem. You're forgiven. We make mistakes. We're all susceptible to it. I'm not a perfect person. Okay. But there's just zero contrition for how they behave. 0.0. There are people ceasing XM and RotoWire when I was making a tweet about how outdoor masking creeps me out. And I feel like these people are like in some kind of cult that creeps me out. They're accusing me of killing people and ceasing my work. Did I get an apology? 0. And me, I was lucky. I was a partner. We sold the company. I was fine. I was the lucky one. There were people they were doing that to who, they did have repercussions with their jobs. They did get censored into silence. They did speak their minds, And so, this is shameful. And I feel like the reckoning hasn't even begun. And, and I'm telling you, when I see you, friend of mine, person I respect, palling around with those guys, like, I'm like, oh, that's an instance of low standards. Like, I'm not going to go and like rat you out to anybody or like do anything, but I think that's low standards. Like you shouldn't, you should realize like if that person had said something racist or homophobic, you wouldn't just be doing that. And the only reason you're doing that, even though their same, the sort of scapegoating instinct was the same for this person, they would have done it in any era where you were allowed to scapegoat those people, is that it's socially acceptable in your circles, that they're still socially acceptable in your circles. And so your morality is not based on how they treat people. Your morality is based on what everyone thinks. And I feel like that's a low standard. I think you have to have a higher standard where you say, is this person, somebody who's bullying on behalf of the authoritarians against people who can be bullied, who the state is encouraging you to bully, as they did in every era where that was the case? Or is this person someone who would be like, no, I wouldn't do that, right? Or is this person contrite? And I just feel like that's how I feel about it. And I'm like, I'm going to be relentless. Like, you should unfollow me or mute me because I'm not going to stop talking about this until there's a reckoning. And if there's never a reckoning, I'm just never going to stop. And I'm never going to stop coming after them. Like, that's it. Like, you got caught. You did it. I see, right? I told you that story about the guy who hit me in LA, fender bender, and I took his insurance, and I was nice to him because he was scared and I was so pissed. And that dude ditched and didn't call his insurance company. I tracked that dude for 6 months. I called the Texas DMV. I got somebody that I called his ex-girlfriend who got his mail, and she hated him too. And she gave me where he was working at a Trader Joe's, and I confronted him in the supermarket 6 months later. And I got in his face and I threatened him, and that fucker paid my fucking thing finally paid 6 months later after I was nice to him. I'm not going to let this go. Did you know the Orbitz story? I made Orbitz pay me. This is not going to something I'm going to let go. And it's not, you're the least of it. The losers who were like in my mentions talking shit, you're the least of it, right? The Fauci's and the Gateses and the people who like actually created a virus in a lab and paid for it. Those people, they're going to have a reckoning, and I'm a one person. I have millions who feel this way, millions. You can't let this go, what they did to society, what they did to your family, what they did to people you love, people, your friends. My family took the friggin' shot, everybody, I mean, come on. Like I'm never going to let this go. Never, not my immediate, not my nuclear, but I'm never going to let this go. Never. Right. So like you're in for a losing battle, right? This is just like, I'm like, you're just never going to escape that. You're just not and there's other people that feel weight. I'm going to encourage everybody to be like, there needs to be a reckoning. Then you move on. Once there's a reckoning, okay, they apologize. They understand why it was wrong. These people went to prison. These people got worse than prison because of the sentence was that bad, what they did. And now we're good. Now we move on. Now we forget it. Now we talk about football. Now we talk about Tom Savage's barbaric QB play.
So when are you going to name the names of the people that did this to you?
Oh, I'm not naming specific names of the losers who did it to me because that's like, the punching down of, the
punching down's okay though. I think punching down's okay.
If someone comes into my Twitter, in my mentions, I'll make an example of them, but I don't want to even credit those people because none of them individually mattered. None of them did. To me, it's basically like everybody saw what happened. Everybody understands, who was sort of for the authoritarians and who was like, hey, calm down. You might not have spoken out, but there were a lot of people who just, they weren't going to persecute people just because they were allowed to. So understand the pettiness. And I feel like I don't want to give people publicity who don't deserve it. I'd like they're literally beneath me. And some of them, I literally like X'd out of my existence. But
maybe
I'm not
that's why it's called X, right? Because you can mute and block them.
You could always have done that. I'm probably muted and blocked by a lot of people. But again, I just don't think people are truly aware. And again, I'm not alone. Like I talk to people. There are millions of people who feel this way that like, we're not like in denial about what happened. We're completely cognizant. And anyone who actually opens up and isn't in denial of what happened would never let something like that go. People won't let go if you insult them on Twitter. Like they'll hold a grudge against you for the rest of your life, the rest of their lives. And yet this is like 1 trillion times bigger. And they're like, they can't, it's too big for them to deal with. But too bad, that it's going to be this way.
I had another topic, which by the way, I'm crossing off my show outline right now because I should have, this is bad planning by me because it's so
can't follow it up.
Can't follow that. But I'll tell you what it was anyway. But by the way, bravo, standing ovation. I'm sure the audience now.
I'm just telling the truth as it is.
Yep,
I'm not even trying to. I'm not performing. I'm just honestly, it's how I feel. Like you fucked with the wrong guy. You fucked with the wrong guy. Like all of those fucking, whatever the plan is for, you're going to have your carbon tracked and blah, blah. You're fucking with the wrong guy. Okay. I'm just telling you, you're fucking with the wrong guy. I'm not fucking around. Okay. Like you do that. I'm going to use whatever resources I have to make sure that you are held to account. I'm not kidding, and that's just how I feel. It's 100% how I feel.
Yeah. I can just see this now. Like this is the Twitter rant. And then all of a sudden it's like, and Tony Pollard's not a good pick in the third round.
That's why I'm thinking, do you think I should do that? Start a new account for Real Man Sports?
I'll tell you, because this is all social media, right? Like even, I've broken out like basketball from our fantasy sports channel. And now both channels are growing because, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm going to have to make 2 YouTube channels for redraft and dynasty fantasy football. Everything is becoming so niche down now. There was a time where you could have it all in one. Now, RotoWire, like with their website, of course, you click on the tab you want with the sport you want. That's fine. But when you're talking about social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all this stuff needs to be niched down to like the micro level because someone who's there for this is not there for that. And if they are, then they can check out both channels. So you're talking about a trend that's already well in process, and the social media content creators that are growing are niching down and separating their channels.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Starting from
want to.
zero.
I don't
Starting
want to.
from
It's more
zero.
complicated for me, but it's just that it.
It's two channels. It's not that complicated.
No, well, I have Noster also, which I'm posting on, but I'm using it as sort of like make one post, paste it on both. Like have both things going.
So again, we won't talk about this, but the other topic that I was going to talk about, just I don't want to leave the audience hanging, was the Peacock game and the business sort of streaming. But that's fine for another day.
I don't even deal with it because my Game Pass just covers everything. Like it doesn't, I don't have to.
It was a big sort of issue in here. And all right, man. Well, that's it. Go follow Chris Liss over at realmansports.com. I'm at Alan Seslowsky on all social media, and we'll see you next week with another mostly football podcast and some other stuff as usual. See you next time.